and welcome to a new video. This video is going to be a little bit different than the other ones. This is one of the few kind of happy story times that I have, and I guess I just wanted to talk about it. I mentioned it in a previous video, but I was actually debating myself on making this story time in particular or not. Mostly because I have a feeling that because of what this story time is about, I may sound a little bit like an egotistical, but it is a true story that happened and I wanted to share it because to this day I'm still kind of proud of myself for it. So this story happened when I was between the ages of 6 and 7, and it actually happened at my first school technically, but then I went to other places and it was like an entire deal. So what happened was that back in the day, when I was 6 actually, there was a contest going around in my country. This contest was to help people, specifically kids, get their creative writing out there, on top of promoting a product. I'm not going to say which product, but it was just to sell some stuff. Essentially, by how I got to know about the contest was because a teacher told us that it was happening and she was motivating the students to try and win the contest. So I said, yeah, sure, okay, I'm going to join. The story was supposed to be about healthy fruits, or at least that's the story that we got as pretty much first graders. So pretty much the entire team of middle school, every single student from middle school and high school should compete. And the first place was decided between like the classes. For example, every kid from first year of middle school who would attempt to enter the contest, they would be fighting against the other students of first grade of middle school of the entire country. Now, this contest in particular, I remember that the story that we had to it was a writing competition. I think I forgot to mention that. This was a writing competition. We needed to create a fake story about eating healthy. That was like the one thing they told us to do, that to eat health. As such, I said, yeah, sure, why not? I don't know how normalized it is for Americans to write at age 6. I remember that this happened when I was 6 years old. I was already very good at reading and writing, so it wasn't that difficult for me. So I just got to writing. Sadly, I could never really retrieve the original story that I made, but I do remember a little bit what was it about. It was about a strawberry girl. I remember that the story was inspired by a book that I liked a lot when I was a kid. It was called El Festín de Agustín. It's a Spanish book, it's a Chilean book about a little pudu. In case you don't know, pudu is actually a type of animal that is considered a national animal in my country. So we have the pudu and the condor chileno. That's our types of animals. So this story was about a pudu which wanted a birthday, and this birthday he wanted to have like a bunch of unhealthy food, and he just couldn't have a birthday with unhealthy food or something like that. Fully honest, I do not remember the entirety of it. I know that at some point he like stole candy and he got like his tummy to hurt because he just ate so much candy. It was a children's book and it was one of my favorites, so I just made a story inspired by that. So this story was about a strawberry girl. It was her birthday and she wanted to eat tons of trash food. So you can see the inspiration right ahead. So she told all her friends that she wanted to make a party, but none of them really wanted to go. So she made a party all for herself, and nobody came. It was filled with trash food, and her friends didn't want to go because they were also like fruit friends and they didn't want to eat trash food. So she made the birthday alone and she felt very sad. And then one of her friends went to search for her and they found her. She was very sad. They went to another place and they did actually celebrate her birthday, but it was with like healthy food. So she actually got to celebrate her birthday, but she would rather not eat healthy food if she could have her friends by her side at her birthday. It was something like that, the story. Thinking about it, perhaps I did get a little little inspired by My Little Pony. You know, there's a chapter where Pinkie Pie wants to make a party and no one from her friends come because they're preparing a surprise party. Probably got inspired by that, but honestly I cannot remember. I don't know. I was 6 years old. Don't beat me too much for plagiarism when I was a 6-year-old. But yeah, I remember that I finished the story and I gave it to the teacher, and well, nothing happened really. I thought that my story just didn't go through, or maybe they just forgot about the contest. Time passed and I stopped being 6 and I started being 7, so a year passed and the actual like nominations for who won the contest arrived and I was nominated. You could guess that I didn't really know what was happening. I was 7 years old, so I had no idea what was happening. Why was everyone so excited? But you know, I just got to I don't know. I don't remember much of when we got the news. I just remember my family being excited. I was like, wait, what's happening? I remember I had to dress very nicely, and I remember that we had to go to a place. It was a large place. It had a scenario and a bunch of chairs, but I don't remember much else of it. I remember that it was a hot day too. And yeah, that's about what I remember. I remember sitting down, watching the presentator, and fully honest, I had no idea what was happening. I had never been to a place like that before, so I had no idea who those people were. All I saw was that my family was excited, and so, you know, if they're excited, I'm excited, so that's good. I don't know, the logic of a 7-year-old, don't question that. So, names started to drop, kids were being called to the scenario, and I was like, oh, this is like when they give us the how do you say this? Like when students get enough grades, at least in that school and overall, I think that in the entire country, they get this like reward for having like the best grades at a certain class. I managed to get the best grades in my class for 3 years straight, so I was a bit of the smarty pants kid. I was also the weird kid, so you can only imagine that I was severely bullied at school. Even when I was that young, I was already bullied at school. It was a mess. But I do remember that by that point, I think that I got one celebration. Yeah, from like 6 to 7. Yeah, it was one celebration. So I was like, oh, it's kind of like that. Huh, that's cool. So I was just sitting down, and suddenly I hear my name. I'm not going to say my real name, but like, Sophia Stardrop, first place. And I was like, what? What do you mean first place? Huh? I mean, I knew that it was something related to the story that I had written, but I couldn't remember. I don't know. Everything just happened so fast. I just remember hearing like first grade, and they said, oh, in the third place we have this student, in the second place we have this student. And then they just said, first place, Sophia Stardrop, come to the scenario. And I remember like my father and mother, they went like batshit insane. And I was like, wait, what's happening? Where am I going? Where are they taking me? And I kind of just panicked. And a lady, I remember, took me to this scenario. There was a bunch of people that were looking at me and giving me applauses. It was weird. I remember that they said, the prize is a laptop computer. And I was like, what? A computer? What am I going to do with a computer? It was like a brand new model at the time. I think it was Windows 7. And it was like, wow, a Windows 7 laptop. I know, that sounds so old, but you gotta remember, this is the 2000s. Between the 2000s and the 2010s. So yeah, the Windows 7 was like a big thing back then. And I was like, oh, okay, this is mine. And I remember this very funny thing where the presenter trying to take like the computer out, because like it's just for show, they'll give it to you later. And I was like, no, don't take it away from me, you actually gave it to me, this is my prize. I don't know, I didn't know how those things worked back in the day, so I don't know, I guess I just wasn't made for the stage. So until they actually explained to me that it was fine to let go and that they would give it to me later, I finally let go. And then a lot of people just had to take pictures of me. I don't know. I remember flashing lights. I remember people clapping. And I remember not much else. I remember feeling anxious. After that, I'm not sure what happened. I just remember that I got out when a lot of people got out. And yeah, I was ambushed by a man with a microphone and a camera woman, I think. or a cameraman, I don't know, I don't remember. And they were like taking notes too. And they asked me something like, how do you feel about winning? And I was like, I mean, it's good. I was a fucking child. I didn't know what to say. And I think that I said back in the day, and that still stuck with me, is that I don't know what he asked me. He asked me something like, what do you think about this story? Why did you write this story like that? And I just told him, well, the strawberry girl was having some problems, but then the story had a happy ending. And the phrase that I said, that I still think is the most based shit I ever said when I was a kid, was, I believe every story should have a happy ending, no matter how difficult the hardships were for the characters. That has to be the most base shit a 6-year-old can ever say. Holy shit, well, 7-year-old technically. But like, every story should have a happy ending, no matter how hard it is. Damn, young Sophie was base as fuck. So yeah, after that I was kind of like spooked because people were like surrounding me, and I'm autistic, so you know. We just got out, I got my computer, and fully honest, at first I didn't know what the fuck to do with it. So it was kind of there until I actually learned how to use a computer. A couple of, like maybe some months later, I don't know. I don't remember, I generally don't remember. I know that I started to use my computer a lot when I was stuck at home, because like I was being bullied by neighbors, so I didn't want to get out of the house to go play at the park. And because I was alone, I said, I'm gonna use the computer that I got. And that's how I actually learned about the internet. And that's how I learned about a lot of stuff. Well, I mean, to be fair, I kind of knew about the internet before that. My family had like a family computer, but having like my own computer was kind of weird. And the system, the Windows 7 is different to Windows XP, so it was weird. And I actually used the internet without any kind of restriction for the first time. And that's how the internet raised me. Eventually, thanks to that old computer, I managed to get into video game development, mostly because, I don't know, I always liked video games. It was like my form of escapism from all the bullying I was getting in real life. So, you know, I just started to learn how to code. I started to learn just overall a bunch of stuff. And at 10 years old, I technically made my first video game. It was a shitty game made with assets that came in Game Maker, but hey, it was technically a video game. And it's quite impressive for a 10-year-old girl who has no idea about English, because hey, there are no Spanish programming language, so not only was I forced to learn programming in a different language, but I was also forced to learn an entirely different language on my own without any kind of help, just so I could do this specific thing, which eventually led to me learning English from YouTubers and other kinds of people. So I also learned how to draw in Paint and how to record for YouTube, and yeah, I don't know, just a bit of a fun story time. I still think that Young Stuff was based. But that's about now. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like, subscribe, and all of those things. And if you want to know more story times that are like this, that maybe sound a little egotistical but are still true, I guess comment? I don't know, or hype. Hype also helps. So I guess see you in the next one. Bye bye.